Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari, Radha Kunj Bihari, Radhe.
Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari, Radha Kunj Bihari, Radhe.
Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra.
Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva Mai Subhadra.
Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Balagopal, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Giri Govardhan.
Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Balagopal, Jaya Srinath Ji, Jaya Giri Govardhan.
Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai.
Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol,
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Ram Sankirtan ki
Jai.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki
Jai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnanadhyandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Dakshinamritam Yena
Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sahajatam Sahana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahana Lalita Shri Vishakam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
So, continue our discussion of chapter. Which chapter?
12.
12? All right. What was the title of the chapter?
Devotional service.
Devotional service. So, what do we think Krishna is talking about in this chapter?
The qualities of a pure devotee, how they are developing those qualities.
Qualities of the pure devotees, how to develop those qualities. And what is Krishna saying about what is significant about these qualities in relation to Krishna? How does Krishna end every one of these verses in this section? It's very dear to me. So Krishna is saying that what are the qualities that make a devotee very dear to him? So, like, any child, they want to be thought of very favorably by mother and father, right? At least in their early years. Later on, maybe not so much, but at least it is a good attempt. So, Krishna here is describing these qualities that are very dear to him. So he has described already so much about him. In chapter 7, he gave knowledge of the absolute in a broad context. In chapter 10, he gave the opulences, his own opulences, and how he is so wonderful. And the purpose of speaking those opulences, we remember, was to inspire our faith in surrendering to Krishna. We should know we are surrendering to somebody extraordinary, no ordinary person, but the supreme person, the supreme personality. So Krishna is saying, what is the qualities of this person who is surrendered to me? What is the qualities of this pure devotee? And so we've been discussing many of these qualities, and he says, Krishna is saying that this devotee is very dear to Krishna. And of course, all living entities are dear to Krishna, because they're all his part and parcels. But to his devotees, Krishna shows special favor. And so, we've been discussing. So, what are some of the qualities we have been discussing? What's your favorite qualities? Or just anyone?
Non-envious.
Non-envious. What does it mean to be non-envious? Huh?
No. To not only be jealous of someone, but not to be in a, not that you don't want them to have it, and stuff. So you don't want to be, they have something that you want, but you don't want them to have it, and all that stuff. So those jealous types feelings, but to take it a step further than that.
In devotional life, this mood of non-envy, a devotee gets happiness seeing others receiving mercy. Often we think, oh, why I didn't get this, why I didn't get that. This person got this, and this person got this. But a devotee is non-envious. He is happy seeing others receiving the mercy of Guru and Krishna. And we have wonderful. We see this quality deeply embedded in Chaitanya Charitamrita. All the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they're constantly showing this. Particularly Rup Sanatana Goswami, Haridas Thakur, they show this in spades because Haridas Thakur is sitting outside the garden watching all the devotees enjoying with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wonderfully honoring Lord Jagannath Prasadam. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally with his own hands giving out prasad. And Haridas Thakur is in ecstasy. And even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is calling him, come, come, Haridas. And he says, no, I'm unqualified. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is calling him. So how humble he must have been to think, no, I'm unqualified. But his mood was not, oh, I'm missing out, it's not fair, these people get this service and they get to enjoy Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and I'm left here just by myself. He was in ecstasy seeing the mercy all the devotees were getting. This is like the epitome of non-envious. And it is the mood we should try to inculcate in our day-to-day life in service. And sometimes, in our nature, we get the elbows out when we're doing service. Let me in. But instead, the devotee is very non-envious. It's a good one. That was actually the first one which Krishna explained. That was the first quality. Any other qualities that struck any of you that you enjoyed?
Share your service with other devotees.
Sharing service with other devotees, yes. It is the nature of the devotee, working very cooperatively. It is a transcendental competition to please Krishna. It is transcendental.
And last week we talked about how we not only to be externally pure, like taking bath twice a week, twice a day, but also being internally pure, with those feelings,
internally pure.
those feelings of lust, anger, greed, which we try to work beyond that and above that, and try to clear that with pure chanting and devotional service.
Our external impurities are sometimes very visible. Right? We have some dirt on our skin, or our hair is not done, in my case, but in your cases, or something we can see external. But inward impurities come out in our behaviors, in our words, in our actions. So Krishna, Chaitanya Prabhupada says the devotee is clean inward and outward. It's a very important point that we cleanse. If we can, we should be honest and know we have these impurities. We have them. It is due to our condition. But by the power of bhakti, it is this great powerful soap that can cleanse these impurities. Yes, clean, inside and out. Any other qualities that we've been discussing here that
Last week
Kindness. Kindness.
kindness, yes. Krishna says he puts no one in difficulty. Right? One of the nature of the devotee is to be very kind to all the beings. We'll see today, or in the 18th verse, not only kind to friends, but kind to even enemies. Or those who are envious of us. Still one remains very kind. And so this takes great strength. Right? This takes great strength.
Yeah.
Sometimes we bite our tongue. Right? But actually the devotee is naturally undisturbed by the inimical actions of others, the envious actions of others, and also the kind action of others. Actually, sometimes it's easy to, ignore the enemies, but sometimes it's hard not to be moved by the kind words of even the closest. So one is equal to all. So Krishna said, he by whom no one is put into difficulty So a devotee is very careful. Let none of my actions put anybody into difficulty. You know, sometimes we know you're doing something, and I know this person's not going to like it. That's my motive even sometimes. It's very, assiduous. It's very dark. Okay? The motive isn't to please Krishna. It's sometimes it comes. So when we find those moments like that, we should snuff that out. No. The devotee doesn't put anybody into difficulty. Now we said last time a devotee also is very expert. So when we say it doesn't put into difficulty, also a devotee is very expert. But expert in what?
Managing Krishna's affairs, like Srila Prabhupada did beautifully.
Expert in serving Krishna. Not in manipulating a situation or in performing sometimes we can be expert in some activity, but is it for the pleasure of Krishna? I may be expert in singing or cooking or this or that, but what is the motive of that expertise? Is it to draw fame or is it to please Krishna? So the expertise here Krishna is speaking about is the expertise in pleasing Krishna. And we gave the example of Srila Prabhupada, right? How he was expert from the small things. Where to buy vegetables in the marketplace, to how to deal with these big materialists in such an effective way, to get what he wanted in Krishna's service. So he's expert in all things. So let's read now the 17th verse, and I think we'll read 18 also, but let's read 17 first. Who wants to read? Translation.
Just translation.
And purport.
One who neither rejoices or grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. Purport. A pure devotee is neither happy nor distressed over material gain and loss, nor is he very much anxious to get a son or disciple, nor is he distressed by not getting them. If he loses anything which is very dear to him, he does not lament. Similarly, if he does not get what he desires, he is not distressed. He is transcendental in the face of all kinds of auspicious, inauspicious, and sinful activities. He is prepared to accept all kinds of risks for the satisfaction of the supreme love. Nothing is an impediment in the discharge of his devotional service. Such a devotee is very dear to Krishna.
So, when we read this, sometimes we have a reaction. What is maybe our initial reaction to this? The initial reaction here? Yeah.
Like emotionless?
Emotionless. Not caring. Right? Sometimes we think, oh, the devotee doesn't care. He has no rejoicing or no lamenting. Right? He is aloof. But is that what Krishna means here?
No.
What does Krishna mean here when he's speaking about no rejoicing nor grieving, nor lamenting nor desiring? What is he speaking about?
Transcendental.
Huh?
Transcendental.
What about transcendental? Yeah?
His auspicious activities.
Okay, so his auspicious activity. What matters to the pure devotee?
Just his service to please Krishna. That's all.
His service to please Krishna. And what doesn't matter to the pure devotee?
Anything else?
Results don't matter.
Results don't matter. Anything else? So when Krishna says he neither rejoices nor grieves, neither rejoices nor grieves what? I have to ask, and what?
What's the question?
Other material, like he doesn't rejoice or gets distressed over other material activities that might be happening around him.
Yes. So the Krishna here is speaking on the material platform. He doesn't rejoice nor grieve over anything material. He doesn't lament nor desire anything material. Renounces the auspicious and inauspicious things. So it means that a devotee's consciousness is exclusively fixed in service to Krishna. Prabhupada said that when a man is driving in the car, he begins to associate with the car because he's so attached to it. So when the car falls ill, the driver feels ill. But why? The driver is not ill. But because there's this deep attachment to the car, the driver experiences the experiences of the car. But actually they're separate. So like that, the spirit soul, who is self-realized, doesn't allow what's happening on the bodily platform to affect one's consciousness. One is unmoved. And so if something great happens, okay, no problem. Something disastrous happens, it's by the will of Krishna. So one does not invest any emotional energy in the material. But is the devotee emotionless? Where is their emotion?
In association with Krishna, like any
In what ways? What does that
Like-
mean?
during festivals, they may, or in service, they may feel very ecstatic, to see, how Krishna is being pleased or something like that, but it does not get, or something.
Any other?
Like enthusiasm in serving Krishna, like no matter what.
Enthusiasm in serving. So, actually, these qualities are the requirement or the prerequisite for being determined undeviatingly in devotional service. Because when we go through ups and downs in devotional service, what gets in the way? All these things. We're rejoicing something or lamenting something. We're grieving something, or we're desiring something. We're following these things, they get in the way of our devotional service. So a pure devotee, how they are so fixed, because no matter what is happening on the bodily platform, they're in bliss serving Krishna. So they're not emotionless. They're fully invested in bliss and happiness in serving Krishna. But if something good or bad happens on the bodily platform, no problem. Somebody says, "Oh, you are beautiful." Well, not this body anyways. Somebody says, "You are ugly." Not this body anyways. Nor does anyone hate. So this hatred, "Oh, I hate this material world," that's also a form of attachment, actually.
How is that?
How? Because it's a negative, this aversion. So you hear Krishna always say, is free from aversion. Aversion means, so now I am spending my energy hating something that is not even relevant to me. So I'm attached to something, the negative of whatever it is. So even that becomes, and we have experienced it, right? When there's some hate in our heart, what happens to our energy?
Low down.
It saps our energy, right? It really drains us. So the devotee, they never let this something, can be happening. No problem. They don't let it sap its energy. And then that's how the devotee is satatam kirtayanto, always chanting Krishna's names. Because they're never rejoicing nor grieving. And Prabhupada says, is neither happy or distressed over material gains or losses. If they happen to do, if they don't, not anxious to get a son or a disciple. Srila Prabhupada when the devotees, when he had just left New York and went to San Francisco, and the disciples had, rented out this very prominent ballroom, and they were planning this huge kirtan program, and they were charging tickets, and so much effort went into this, and nice stage was built, and all these things. And they came, and Srila Prabhupada was up on the stage and singing kirtan, and hardly a handful of people were there. And the devotees were devastated. They were just crushed, thinking, oh, Srila Prabhupada's going to be so upset, sad. And the devotees were like on the verge of tears. Of course, their mood was love to serve their spiritual master. So at the end, afterwards, they came and said, we're sorry, Srila Prabhupada, nobody came. And he says, what do you mean nobody came? Narada Muni was there, and all the great, and he started calling, really? They were here? You didn't see? Yeah, they were there. The holy names were being chanted. Prabhupada, it wasn't attached. 5 people came or 10 million came. No problem. He was simply going to render service to his spiritual master. And it was not attached to those results. So he writes here that he's not anxious to get a son or a disciple. But Srila Prabhupada was anxious to spread the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But he was not anxious, as Mother said, over the result. So this is the mood of the devotee. And thus he is prepared to accept all kinds of risks for the satisfaction of Krishna. What kind of risk Srila Prabhupada endured? Anyone can endure that type of risk? You won't see that type of activity. That is a very extraordinary outcome. Extraordinary. And we are the beneficiaries of it. Most certainly. Let's read the next verse. This point continues on. What?
One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who does not care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me.
Report?
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. A devotee is always free from all bad association. Sometimes one is praised, sometimes one is defamed. That is the nature of human society. But a devotee is always transcendental to artificial fame and infamy, distress or happiness. He is very patient. He does not speak of anything but the topics about Krishna. Therefore, he is called silent. Silent does not mean that one should not speak. Silent means that one should not speak nonsense. One should speak only of essentials, and the most essential speech for the devotee is to speak for the sake of the Supreme Lord. A devotee is happy in all conditions. Sometimes he may get very palatable foodstuffs, sometimes not, but he is satisfied.
Nor does he care for any residential facility. He may sometimes live underneath a tree, and he may sometimes live in a very palatial building. He is attracted to neither. He is called fixed because he is fixed in his determination and knowledge. We may find some repetition in the descriptions of the qualification of a devotee, but this is just empathize the fact that a devotee must acquire all this qualification. Without good qualification, one cannot be a pure devotee. harav abhaktasya kato madana ganaha. One who is not a devotee has no good qualification. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop a good qualification. Of course, he does not extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him develop them.
So, this repetition we see, how many times Krishna has been speaking about this equipoised nature?
A
Quite
lot.
In the 6th chapter, the 3 verses about the qualities of a person with a controlled mind. In the 7th chapter, 8th chapter, we see this equipoised nature, 2nd chapter, quite a bit. Right? So Prabhupada is making a very important point. Don't think, okay, come on, Krishna, get on with it. Tell me something new. Why the repetition is there? For emphasis. For emphasis. Actually, if you see, Srila Prabhupada's lectures, his lectures, every single lecture, you'll hear, we are not this body, we are spirit soul.
Yes.
And he repeats it in virtually every single lecture. But there's no extra repetition there. That is for a purpose, for emphasizing the points. So Prabhupada is writing this that is to emphasize the importance of developing these qualities. So how do we develop these qualities?
Chanting.
Huh?
Chanting.
Prabhupada says you don't have to extraneously try to develop them. Oh, let me try to be equal in honor and dishonor. Let me try to just chant sincerely, render devotional service sincerely. And these qualities will naturally, because these are the qualities that are inherent to the spirit soul. Because who possesses these qualities?
Krishna.
And he possesses them in full. And so why are we also possessing these qualities? By what fact? They're part and parcel. If Krishna has them, then we must have them also. So they may seem very lofty or very, high to achieve. Yeah, they're lofty, but they're actually our natural characteristics. Our natural character is to be free of envy, to be kind to all, to be equipoised. That's our natural characteristic. But because we have been in our unnatural state of interacting with matter, under the illusion of Maya, we have acquired some bad qualities. Okay, no problem. Nothing to lament. Simply chant nicely. And these qualities will manifest. So, equipoised in honor and dishonor. Easy or difficult? Not easy, right? But what makes it easy?
Mercy of Krishna.
Huh?
Mercy of Krishna.
The mercy of Krishna definitely makes it easy. And what can our consciousness be to help us be equipoised in honor and dishonor? What are some good facts to practically, we always said it's difficult, right? So now let's make it a little bit easier. When we experience these, what things can we remind ourselves of that will help us try to be equipoised?
So we are spirit souls first of all.
We are
How does it
spirits.
matter?
It doesn't matter. What does matter?
Krishna is our best friend.
Krishna is our best friend. So if there is dishonor coming from somebody, we can remind ourselves, okay, but what does Krishna think of me? Okay, this person is dishonoring me. Let me not lament. What is my relationship with Krishna in relation to this? So one is unmoved. Whereas one is not so overly concerned whether one is glorifying them or not. One is concerned, am I pleasing Krishna? What other facts can we hold on to try to get strength during these times of honor and dishonor?
We are not disrupting here, sorry. Thinking that
Keep reminding over and over and over again, right? Krishna's all-knowing. He knows our honor and dishonor. Whether somebody is broadcasting it or not doesn't matter, right? If somebody is broadcasting some blasphemy, Krishna knows whether it's truth or not. So why do we have to fight whether it's truth or not? Who cares? Krishna knows. Right? So one doesn't have to lose energy. Because what happens when we go to a bad endeavor? We forgo service to Krishna. My consciousness now is not on Krishna, it is on defending my dishonor. Right? And if you see Srila Prabhupada, sadly, he experienced quite a bit of criticism. Extraordinary criticism. And what was the deepest criticism, or maybe the most difficult criticism? Of his God brothers. Imagine that.
few days back, I was listening Bhakti Charu Maharaj's lecture. He was telling that when he was coming with his disciples to Mayapur to start the temple, on the way, Bhakti Siddhant, yeah, it was there. He didn't stop, so he was getting a lot of criticism. So everybody was going and saying Prabhupada, everybody saying like that. But he answered, I was never alone. My Maharaj, my Guru Maharaj is with me always. So I don't need to physically go there. So a lot of criticism he like.
And he never developed animosity. He begged forgiveness for anything, and the brother said, "What? You did nothing." So the honor and dishonor. But actually, what is more dangerous for us? Getting attached to the honor. That is actually more dangerous. Because that then breaks our understanding. I'm an insignificant, tiny speck of the Supreme Lord. Sometimes it's easier to detach from the dishonor, actually. It's easier to detach from the dishonor. Ignore it.
Right.
The honor
Yeah, that's
is
very
very difficult
To maintain.
to detach from. Very difficult to detach. So when that comes, one has to be extraordinarily fixed in service to Krishna. So that is the hardest part. The spiritual master endures, and we say endures, the worship from his disciples, the honor from his or her disciples. That is a service to Krishna. But it is not relished by the spiritual master. Sometimes we see fanciful and lavish worship, and there's that the conditioned mind starts to creep. But actually, the spiritual master also tolerates that as a service to Krishna. Knowing that to bring this mood of service and humility, the Guru is willing to put themselves into that position. Now what great service they allow for us. So this honor and dishonor is nice. Heat and cold. Our air conditioning was out last 2 days.
Our was 2 months.
2 degrees warm, everything is disrupted. 2 degrees. We cannot tolerate the littlest of heat or cold.
Everything gets upside down.
Everything is ruined. Right? Heat and cold.
So much like our.
So, this attachment, but the devotee still has desires, right? Through all of this, what is the devotee's desire? Huh?
Sir, question nicely.
Please.
The devotee remains very enthusiastic, very energetic, very emotionally invested in the service. Right? So this is not we become stone-like. One is full heart and emotion into the service, but not into these other things. More often our emotion goes into these other things and not into the service of Krishna. So the devotee knows that they take all of their emotional energy and they are fully invested in beautifully decorating the Lord, beautifully singing for the Lord, cooking for the Lord, organizing festivals.
Picking flowers from the
picking flowers.
Yeah.
like we have to pick 3 days. And whole week I'm so in anxiety. Kitna milega? Kitna milega? And I sometimes we have to just pick 3 days. One day I went. We told you today is not your turn. I'm like, I don't care if they don't come. I'll come and I'll pick it up and then I'll go. They came and picked it up. They said, do not come before 11. I'm like, who cares? I stand there till by 10. And like if they don't pick up, I pick it up. Or sometimes they're like, that's okay, you guys can pick it up. They're like, okay, whatever. Then my Prabhu said, do not pick it up, otherwise they will take us out. Take it when your turn is. Jada, you are getting much greedier. Like, yes, whatever, but I get
So this emotion in love is what we see full in Vrindavan. Right? In Goloka Vrindavan, residents are fully enjoying emotion. But there is no sideways emotions, right? There is no conflict, there is no dissatisfaction, there is no this and that. Everybody is united in one activity, pleasing Krishna. And Krishna has only one activity, pleasing his devotees. There is no other activity. So why take all this other stuff out? Remove all the other things. Just please Krishna. Yes.
Wouldn't conflict have to exist in the spiritual world in order to have it in the material world? But the conflict in the spiritual world would be a pure form of conflict versus,
Yeah,
or what are,
it's competition.
yeah.
It's competition. There's the mood of competition. The spirit is engaging, right? The cowherd boys, they engage in all kinds of competition. They have wrestling matches,
Oh yeah.
and they wrestle. Right? We have winners and losers, because that is our experience that pleases Krishna.
So it's competition in the spiritual world, but it turns into conflict in the material world?
Like, Prabhupada established this concept of book distribution scores. Right? So every morning, they would read, for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, this many books were distributed. This is a tradition that started during Prabhupada's time, because they knew those scores were most pleasing to Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
So devotees were inspired by each other's activities. Oh, today this devotee got a good score. So they became inspired that let me try, let me learn from them how they did. And I can also. So that type of competition inspires one to do more and better service. So in Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, the devotees are also competing. But their mood is to not let me bring somebody down to elevate me. No, let me become inspired by someone who's doing better than me. And why? Because then I may do a little more service. And like this, and there's this transcendental competition. But what enters the equation that makes it material? I, me, and mine. False ego.
Yeah.
As
Oh,
soon
yeah,
as there's
Prabhu.
false ego, done. There's no transcendental competition, right? So the devotee is very mindful of keeping the goal pure to please Krishna. If somebody else can do a service that pleases Krishna better, let me assist them in doing that service. Instead, no, let me do. let me find a way to get me. No, let me find. But if I have some expertise also, let's say I'm, Krishna's given some gift. We should think, no, I'll just not use that gift. No, I don't. No. The devotee is expert in using whatever gifts Krishna has given them for the service of Krishna. But they do so in a way that doesn't give any harm to others. Or they use their gifts intelligently. Prabhupada was using his gifts in the service of Krishna. So, in this meaning of equipoise, one doesn't also avoid using and performing the services that they may be very gifted at, but they know this is simply a gift from Krishna. I am doing nothing. I have nothing I can do. Krishna has shown some favor. Let me use it in his service. But not use it to increase my fame, to increase my status or my position, or to make someone else feel lesser. That's what these motives sometimes creep in. So when they do, what do? Chant more. Chant more. But we should identify them. See, yeah, I didn't have the right thought there. Let me try not to have that type of thought. It's going to come. If we think, no, it never happens to me, well, maybe you're pure. It's possible. You all are pure. But if we really honestly introspect, we'll find those. And we can squash. Not by trying to squash them, but by good chanting.
So, Prabhu, so many devotees know this philosophy, like, especially if you're in ISKCON, but still they don't have those type of mood. Like, okay, we should share our services or we should teach other devotees. So, like, my question is, why not? Like, especially if devotees has
don't worry about others, worry about ourselves. It's going to happen. More focus on ourselves. Unless you're really in a management position where it is your responsibility to worry about and make sure everything's going. Otherwise, just focus on ourselves.
But my question is, why if they know this philosophy, then why don't they follow this philosophy?
Ask ourselves first, why don't I follow?
Right.
Why? Because we have impurities. We're not perfect. There are anarthas. There's conditioning. We all come to this process with different levels of conditioning. Right? So someone's coming to this process and there's an extra level of conditioning. What do? Get out! Instead, we should give more mercy. So that conditioning can be removed. Right? So when these qualities are there, what we try to do is show more mercy and be compassionate. But unless it is really our position and service, unless it is our service, we really focus on what I can do. Krishna says, often what we see in others is a reflection of us. It is Krishna's blessing. So when we see, some deficiencies, if we say it, that we understand. They're also conditioned. I'm conditioned. Right? It's just a level of conditioning that is there. Yes, we all know this philosophy, but we should avoid we don't need to tell Krishna who's doing what and whatever. He knows. He didn't. Our service in this world is not to be his reporter.
Right.
He knows. So instead, we focus on ourselves, and if some of them, we pray for them. We pray that also their anarthas, their conditioning can be removed, just like my own. Spend more time looking inward. Unfortunately, we spend most of our time looking outward. But instead we see, okay, what am I? How I can. That is me. And what we can do as individuals to help all others. Friend and enemy. Oh. No envy.
What if when we introspect and we find there's so many wrong things inside us, then you're saying that we should do effective chanting. So when we are chanting, then how those things will go away? We have to meditate on them, right? We have to do something about it. Just by chanting, how will then those things go? We have to do something.
Darpanamarjanam. Chanting cleanses the mirror of the heart.
But we need to meditate on that when we're chanting. How?
Meditate on Krishna. You can meditate on that. You can pray to Krishna. Krishna, I can't rid myself of this envy, or this anger, or this greed, or something, whatever it is. Krishna, I'm helpless in getting rid of this, but you can do it. I want to serve you better. Please help me. How do you think Krishna will respond? Because the devotee is not desireless. The devotee just doesn't have material desires. So the devotee knows to desire. Let me become free from these things. So by knowing about these, we know, oh, I want to become free from... How many people in the world want to be free of envy? Nobody prays that way. They don't know the danger that it does to us.
One more question.
Yes,
sir.
So when we see the impurities within, it is proof that Krishna has shown great favor to us. Because unless we see them, we can't do much. We won't even acknowledge them. So we shouldn't become unmotivated. We should become motivated. Wow, Krishna really loves me. The disciple that is chastised by the spiritual master knows, wow, the Guru really loves me. Now, disciple doesn't try to get chastised by the disciple, by the Guru. Let's be clear. But knows that Guru really is trying to help me. It's painful. It's difficult. So when Krishna shines a light on our deficiencies, yeah, it's a little painful. But we should know that is a great sign, as Mataji was saying. Many people know, but aren't doing anything about it. Now that I know, I can do something about it. I can pray to Krishna. Help me. Pray to Guru. But the process is, yes, it is chanting. It is the ultimate purifying process. And so we can improve the quality of our chanting. Because whether we pray for it or not, the result will happen. So whether I'm praying to be free of envy, this, that, the other, the result will happen. Because it's purifying the heart. Like the diamond, when it's covered in the mud, as soon as I start cleaning it, whether I'm desiring to bring out the sparkle of the diamond or not, by the cleansing process, that sparkle is coming out. Similarly, these qualities are inherent in all of us. So simply by cleansing that covering, this chanting process, those qualities come out. But when we know and are aware of the qualities, it helps us accelerate a little bit. It makes it a little bit more focused, and our chanting can become more prayerful. You had a second question?
Yeah. So, example, if we need to pray for those qualities to go away, so like how, just trying to practically understand how will really we go about doing that. So like just before we start our chanting, the 16 rounds, we kind of do that prayer. And then again, as Guru Maharaj says, that we focus on each and every word, syllable, right? So that time when we are doing the chanting of the 16 rounds, during that time we don't think about those qualities again, right? That or the prayer. Then we have to just focus on what we are speaking and then hearing, speaking, hearing. Or does that prayer mood continue throughout the chanting? And if it does, I don't know, I cannot do parallel tasking. Actually, I'm not able to do that.
No, you're very right. Actually, the mind, psychologists say, the mind cannot do two things at once. What it does is it flips very quickly between two things and sounds like one. But actually, it can only do one thing at a time. That is the nature of the mind. So, yeah, the best is to continue to speak and hear the holy names. But there is a subconsciousness that is also at play. But sometimes, the thoughts in the mind will wander, and you can bring it back to that prayer for moon. At the end of each round, remind ourselves, I'm trying to purify myself of these, and then get back into it and chant. And then we get, so like that, you can create And everybody has a little bit different process, if you will.
What is your process?
Huh?
What is your process?
So we find what kind of works for us. But the best is to hear the names as we're chanting. Right? That is the most powerful means when we are chanting, is to hear all 16 names. Because as you know, it really consumes the mind. It's hard to do, right? So sometimes people will also chant and will count on the fingers.
Yeah.
You see this?
Yeah.
They're doing this?
I have tried that too.
Yeah.
But then,
Don't worry, keep trying. Because remember, this chanting is a lifelong progression. Actually, all of our services. We think, okay, let me learn this service and now I'm good. We never stop learning to serve Krishna. We never stop. It is an eternal fact. So much so, we were just discussing on Wednesday night, that when the living entity becomes pure, then what happens? They go to the spiritual world? No. They first make a pit stop. And they take birth in the home of one of the gopis in Bhumi Vrindavan, where Krishna is performing his pastimes. Why? To further purify. The learning process. Prabhupada writes in Srimad Bhagavatam that is where the devotee is trained up. So I'm thinking, I'm getting trained up, I'm learning this service, and now I'm good. I got it. I have my degree. No, it's a lifelong process. Lifelong process of learning how to serve Krishna. So it's a lifelong process how to chant. Don't think, it's not getting better. Yes, it is getting better. The fact that you are chanting is proof positive that each time we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram,
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
we are purifying so much. Sixth canto, second chapter, read those middle verses, first 15 verses. Even if you don't know that it's happening, it's happening. If I know fire will burn me or not, when I put my hand in a fire, whether I know it's hot or not, it will burn. Whether I know it's purifying me or not, when I'm chanting, I am being purified. The potency is so strong. Now when I knowingly do, it has even more and more. So be confident that this process is working. But sometimes as we progress, we see more and more of our deficiencies. But just remember, where were we a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago? Right?
It's true.
And we'll continue to, and don't hanker on our deficiencies. Hanker on the great fortune we have to be in Srila Prabhupada's family, who has given us this extraordinary gift and so much mercy. He says, you can simply do this. Yeah, by the power and mercy of Srila Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Guru Parampara, you can relish that. You can be very grateful. And let it take its course. And be confident. That's why Krishna says at the end of Bhagavad Gita, what does he say? Ma suchaha. Do not fear, my child. Do not fear, he says. Ma suchaha. Don't worry. I have your back. I'll take care of you. Parent is always wants their child. Don't worry, beta. I have you. Don't worry. So Krishna doesn't want us to worry, but also wants us to be attentive and eager and enthusiastic, right? So we have to balance those two. Don't worry, but also be enthusiastic and not lazy. Don't go on either end of the extreme.
That verse too, where he preserves what you have and carries what you lack.
Yeah.
Is that he helps us along the way.
All of our deficiency, who's going to fill them? Yeah, Krishna. He'll give them. Don't worry. Be confident. As long as we stay in the boat of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada's home, he is guaranteed our. And when a pure devotee desires for us, Krishna fulfills it no matter what. So all we want to do is come under the favorable glance of a pure devotee of the Lord, and we are saved. Just serve the devotees. And if we are under the glance of a pure devotee, we are guaranteed.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Hare Krishna Prabhu. When Lord mentions all these devotional qualities to be very dear to him, then two things come to mind as realizations in practicing Krishna consciousness as a practitioner. One, our senses have to be engaged in this material world, but we should respond to the situation, but should not react. And then two, when we consciously try to imbibe these qualities in our daily life, we could be aloof and moving away from family and social settings for the sake of pleasing Krishna.
So they're both kind of related comments / questions. That this is where this idea of becoming emotionless can sort of creep in. So again, with family, one's family is also a service to Krishna. I have taken the responsibility in this Grihastha ashram to care for some of Krishna's children. So I have a responsibility and a duty to be emotionally attached to my children as service to Krishna. So we don't ignore our family. I don't care about you when you think about me. No. Because that is, family is also, taking care of the family is part of my service to Krishna. Because I have entered this ashram, and now entered the ashram for the purpose of delivering Krishna's children back to him. So we should become emotionally invested and involved, but not attached to the bodily platform of family, but to the spiritual platform. Right? Same thing with our, quote-unquote material affairs. For a devotee, there are no material affairs. Everything is spiritual. The devotee uses everything in service of Krishna, but nothing in service for them. So if they're in the office and they have to get into some tussle, some, whatever, that is not, again, from a self-centered motive. So one doesn't go to the office, I don't care if it happens or not. No, Krishna tells Arjuna, Vigata Jvara, you fight without lethargy. He's not saying you just show up on the battlefield. He's saying you fight with enthusiasm. So in the office, if that's our domain, we also do our work enthusiastically. Try to do it the best we can for the service of Krishna. So yeah, there is emotion involved. There is enthusiasm involved. There is different emotions there. But again, it's centered around service to Krishna. Right? So it should not make us aloof or stone-like. If it does, we're misapplying it a little bit. Just adjust the thought process. It is not to make one aloof. That's it.
Prabhuji, one question here which you mentioned right now. You said focus on the emotional aspect of the children, not the material aspect. Could you explain a little bit what is
The spiritual aspect?
Spiritual aspect, yeah, rather than the material aspect. Could you explain?
When we have our family, we want the best for our family, right? Anybody desires anything less than the best? Well, what is best for our family?
Krishna.
Krishna Prema. That is the best we can give them. That is the absolute best we can give them. So we should give them Krishna Prema. But we also have to think, what is it connected with that? We have to give them education, We have to give them, of course, our love, our attention, our respect. All those things we give them, but in connection with the main goal, which is to help them to go back home, back to God. Because we don't want them to suffer again birth, death, old age, disease. Right? So, but it doesn't mean that, okay, I'm not going to give them anything else, like, I'm not going to give them education. We have to, that's part of it. If they're going to enter Grihastha ashram, they need some education to make some livelihood and children, but we teach them what to do with that livelihood. If you're going to use it to enjoy your senses, you'll find difficulty. And then, of course, there's a practical application that brings it to a next level. But the goal should be understanding. And we should understand that they're spiritual, I am spiritual. We have come together as waves bring grains of sand together, and then when the wave leaves, it brings apart and new pieces come together. Time has brought us together, and time will separate. But our connectivity is there. They're all part and parcel. So, and that's why Prabhupada said that the children born in this movement, they're not ordinary children. They're children from the spiritual world. We've been given an opportunity to help them. So we should take this. He says, if you're not going to care for them, I'll care for them. Sometimes devotees in their enthusiasm would be trying to render so much service, they would neglect the children. That pain Srila Prabhupada immensely. That's not going to please Krishna. Right? So in our service also, we should not do it in a way that comes at the expense of our family. We should do with the best we can. Also can't force. Each person has free will.
Yeah.
Right? We make it available, we pray, and then of course there's free will that intersects.
Do I have a question?
Yes.
Like sometimes, like I'm telling my personal thing. Like
Yeah.
sometimes if I somehow I'm not able to do my chanting, and when I go to temple or like some festival or usual day or something, we see service. I see service, but somehow or another nobody does it. So what should be my priority? Because if something is really, that service has to be done, dirty laundry or something or cooking or whatever, and or festival is really near and I have to do it, and somehow I missed my chanting and nobody's there to do. So what should I do? Like, should I finish my chanting, or should because the service is necessary as well? So what should I do? Like
Both.
yeah, but like if somehow
Always, we must always protect our chanting. We should always be attentive to our chanting. There are very rare, they happen, very rare circumstances where that can intersect. But that is very exceptional. So if it happens, you have to think a little bit. But I can say mostly unequivocally, always chant our rounds nicely and then attend to our service. And that's why Srila Prabhupada established this process, right? Mangalarti was chant our japa. Guru Puja Srimad Bhagavatam class, breakfast, fill the belly, then serve all day long, distributing books, Harinam Sankirtan, different programs, right? The chanting is the core of our strength and service. And so sometimes, yeah, like on festival days, we can get really busy in service and neglect our chanting. We should find ways that we chant our rounds nicely in all days and know that is the source. Again, there are some extraordinary circumstances that manifest. Those are very, very far and few in between. And I remember, I quote this on this Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj is talking about, had this experience that, in a big festivals, and he's always organizing these enormous festivals, and very talented. And he said, if you really chant your rounds nicely in the morning, then everything goes so much smoother. But as soon as I think, let me attend to this, I've attended this right away, and I neglect my chanting, things just unravel. So, first chant our rounds. We should not pursue career at the expense of our chanting. We should not do services at the expense of our chanting. We should not do reading at the expense of our chanting. That is the inner core of our sadhana. And then everything else should be additive to that. And everything else we do should build our chanting, our faith and determination in chanting.
That's
All
our
around
number
the
one
service.
service.
Huh?
That's our number one service, chanting.
हाँ केली मंजरी
All of us. And there's a core, yes.
I have a question. My father used to say, like when you talk about chanting and all that, okay, chanting you are doing, but this is very, I shouldn't be saying, but it's like this is a very selfish thing that you are doing. You're doing it for yourself, right? So what we talk about compassion, you're talking about love, you're talking about so many other things, you talk about helping others. So why this chanting becomes your core and you spend hours together on something which is so focused on yourself and your relationship with Krishna. It's not anybody else's relationship with Krishna. So isn't it a selfish thing?
So, when the great philanthropist is giving charity and distributing wealth to others, we look very favorably upon that, right? They're giving wealth to others to help them in their need. That is very generous. So when that philanthropist is busy in his office working, is that a selfish activity? Or is that a means to his charity?
It means to us.
It's a means to his charity. Our chanting is a means to be able to be charitable in spreading this message of Krishna
Because they
consciousness.
can hear also, that's why it's benefit for them too.
But yet that is true. But our ability to spread the message is based on our ability to practice and to purify. So the potency to preach, the potency to spread this message, the potency to do this comes from our chanting. So the chanting is not a selfish motive, it's the source of strength to perform the greatest welfare activity. Right? Just as the philanthropist in the office is not being selfish, it's a means to their charity. Okay? So, and Prabhupada did agree with your father to some degree. He said, you're not here to sit and chant alone in the forest all day long, because you're not qualified to do that. You chant your rounds, you attend and you render practical service. And the devotee has no concern for their own liberation, their own freedom from birth, death, old age, and disease. They're paradukha dukhi. Their only pain is seeing the suffering of others. They have no self-salvation. So the chanting is not their own self-preservation activity. Their chanting is the potency by which they can help distribute this message to others. So that's how we understand. And that should also be our mood, right? That this chanting is a means to give me the potency and the ability. Because it's only going to come from Krishna. We have no independent ability to do anything.
Is that when they say purity is the force?
Yes. So Prabhupada said, chant your rounds first, then go out and spread this message.
It's so simple and so beautiful. So amazing. So wonderful you explained it so nicely.
So Prabhupada has laid this out very systematically for us. These are all very practical questions and statements, right, that we have to clear them to know how to apply it in, when I say day-to-day. This philosophy is not theoretical. It is so practical in everything we face. And that is the beauty of it. It's millions of years old, but it's still the latest technology.
Our house should be full, Prabhuji.
Huh?
Our house should be full. It's a beautiful philosophy.
It is. Tulsi Maharani is here. All these beautiful methodologies.
Firefly.
That is the independent free will of all.
और क्वेश्चन है तुमको?
श्रील प्रभुपाद की
जय।
संत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद
जय।